Thank you, Madam Chair. After that, who on earth would be a Defence Minister? I ask you. It is a great privilege to speak during the Armed Forces Week. We have a clear responsibility in this place to support HM Forces, so the timing is very neat. And as Chair of the Armed Forces Bill Select Committee, I am familiar with this bill. And it's a good bill. But can I please commend members to the Select Committee report and also the subsequent statement made in this House on the 22nd of April. Both were fully objective and the result of painstaking analysis and debate within the Select Committee. Yes, we did not agree on every issue. In fact, we didn't agree on many issues. Please.
Actually, in my contribution to the House, to thank the Honourable Member for Bracknell for his chairing of the bill. He got thrown in at the deep end at the last minute. But I've got to say, I think all members of the Select Committee thought he did an excellent job and ensured that everyone had their say. So can I just put on record my thanks, I'm sure, all the members for the way he chaired the committee.
Can I please thank the Right Honourable Member for Durham North and my friend for those very kind words, and it was a real pleasure to chair that superb committee. The point I was going to make is that the report, I think, was pretty good. I believe it to be a framework for what lies ahead, and perhaps even a template for what we do with this standing legislation in 5 years' time. So, in my view, we're progressing all of the time, and the future looks good. I want to spend my time this afternoon discussing two areas, if I may, namely the statutory guidance and also the latest amendments to the bill. Firstly, I want to thank the Minister, if I may, for his written response to the Select Committee report and also for the draft statutory guidance that we've now got. We must acknowledge, of course, that the Covenant is already with us. It's been signed by the vast majority of councils all over the UK, including Northern Ireland. And in fact, it's got its 10th birthday at this point in time. So what better present than to bring it into statute? So in my view, the door is already open for the statutory guidance, and it's a good bit of work so far. I welcome the fact that it places a due regard on the placeholder, that it recognises rightful outcomes, that it reflects the unique sacrifices and obligations on HM Forces and places a legal obligation on the delivery of health, accommodation and local support from councils. It also provides examples of good practice and pragmatic guidelines for how this is to be provided. I note that prescriptive performance targets are still absent, but it may just be that it's impossible to apply any meaningful metrics and tools to this area. And I just do not believe that councils are in any doubt of what's expected of them after 10 years. But, and it's a big but, it may be that guidance is still needed on how they will be held to account if they do not meet their obligations. I read with interest a line in the guidance that, quote, covenant duty does not mandate public, specific delivery outcomes or advantageous treatment of the armed forces community. It only mandates that consideration takes place when exercising certain functions. Madam Chair, this worries me as the local authority complaints process does not cut it in terms of what I believe is still needed. And simply inviting disaffected personnel to contact their MP fills me with horror. So I would please urge the Minister to look again at this, to dig deeper and to do the right thing. On to the amendments, if I may. I'm comfortable with what the government has tabled here, and I want to talk to a handful. New Clause 1 on immigration fees would amend the Immigration Act 2014 to waive the fee for indefinite leave to remain applications for any current or previously serving members of the UK Armed Forces. And similarly, New Clause 7 provides that foreign Commonwealth veterans applying for indefinite leave to remain following 4 years of service will only pay the unit cost of an application. I'm clear in my mind that the government does have this key issue at hand, and I welcome the consultation that's recently been announced by the MOD and the Home Office. I would personally wish to see an amnesty for those F&C personnel who slipped through the net, and I agree that it's right to abate the cost of visa fees as a function of time to incentivise longer service. And as a former commanding officer of the largest and the most diverse unit in the British Army, this is the right way to go. even though it may set a precedent for other government departments. On to new clause 2, the duty of care standard. This would require the Secretary of State to establish a duty of care standard in relation to legal, pastoral and mental health support provided to service personnel. The MOD does take very seriously its duty of care for service personnel and veterans, and over the years it's established a comprehensive range of legal, pastoral, welfare and mental health support for service personnel and veterans. And we have come a long way from those early days of operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, with which I am very familiar. The covenant is also being enshrined in law, so I think that that may be redundant at this point in time. New clause 3 requires the government to publish a report on changes to personnel numbers across all services and to detail the impact of reductions on operational capabilities. But, Madam Chair, none of this is a closely guarded secret, and the MOD recently published its Defence Command paper called Defence in a Competitive Age, and noted that the size of the army would be reduced. So I believe that this clause is also redundant. The information is out there. On to new clause 4, dismissal for sexuality. This requires the government to conduct a comprehensive review of the number of people who are dismissed or forced to resign from the armed forces due to their sexuality, and to make recommendations on appropriate forms of compensation. Restorative justice is difficult due to the policies that were legally enforceable at that time, but I'm comfortable for now that the government is making strides to tackle this, not least by restoring medals and engaging much more broadly with the LGBTQ+ community, and that is absolutely the right thing to do. As for the duty of care for alcohol, drugs and gambling disorders at new clause 6, well, it's already there. It's called good leadership, and also the covenant, which is being enshrined in law. And lastly, a representative armed forces body at new clause 8 is laudable, but we are not there yet. This would create a representative body for the armed forces, akin to the Police Federation, which would represent their members in matters such as welfare, pay and efficiency. The government has not been persuaded at this point in time that there is a requirement or a groundswell of support for a federation along the lines that have been suggested. And the interests of armed forces personnel are already represented through a range of mechanisms, again, not least through the chain of command. Furthermore, the Service Complaints Ombudsman provides impartial scrutiny of service complaints made by members of the UK Armed Forces regarding any aspect of their service life. But for the Minister's benefit, I would welcome, in this case, an independent body to provide additional rigour for service complaints. In my experience, service complaints are very awkward, and it may just be that taking them out of units and out of the chain of command is the right thing to do. So to conclude, if I may, one of the main criticisms of this bill is that it just does not go far enough. But I refute this as an ex-serviceman. Any new legislation has to be deliverable, proportionate, pragmatic and responsible. It has to attract the necessary due diligence and analysis, for it needs to consider the effect on those it relates to. And no government can write cheques that it cannot cash, as it has to maintain the fundamental ethos and integrity of the organisation itself. In this field, our armed forces are preeminent and must be afforded the autonomy they need to do their job. So this is about evolution, not revolution. And I believe that we will get there in due course in terms of what the Select Committee has recommended. And for those who wish to turn this unique organisation into what they would wish it to be, by clipping its wings, softening operational capability, ignoring its hard edge, or negating the importance of the chain of command, please be careful what you wish for. Thank you.